5:36, and we are like to call the meeting of the Affordable Housing Trust to order. Grace, are you taking minutes?
She said yes.
Okay. So why don't we just go through who's here? Sorry. Jeannie Brooks,
Yes.
Brian
Present.
Gallagher,
Yeah.
Maureen Dwinell? No.
She's
Gina-
not here.
I keep, she has, I think her name is Garachi now. Gina Garachi, no. Kathy Robertson, yes. So we have quorum. And also on the call, we have Mike Antonellis, planner. We have Grace Brown?
Brownell.
Yes.
Yes. Who will be taking minutes and who's been helping staff us. And we have Janipa, I don't know how to spell your name and I don't know your last name.
She's got it on the
It's Chowdhury.
It's Chowdhury.
Chowdhury.
Sorry,
Okay.
I thought, oh, sorry, it's Nipa Chowdhury, sorry.
Okay.
I thought
Yeah,
you said
I can't.
Nipa. I was like, who's Nipa? Sorry.
No, I just flirted because I'm eating a piece of toast as we're talking.
Oh.
So,
Oh, no worries.
Okay. And you'll be staffing us for a couple hours a month for the time being?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get into that a little bit later. So as far as general meetings go, I made one, I think there was one change in name to the previous minutes. Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes?
Yep.
Okay.
Maureen was not there. Maureen wasn't with us. That name should be removed from the list from last
Okay.
meeting.
Okay. So Grace, can you make that amendment?
And my name is incorrectly spelled.
Well, I guess I didn't look at them carefully enough.
It's okay. I'll tell Grace. Grace, my name is spelled Jeannie. I-E. There's an I before the E, except after C.
And Brian,
It's Jeannie.
were you, yeah,
Go ahead.
did you have any questions about the minutes or were they okay? Brian, I can't hear you.
I can't either.
Michael and Brian, are you still all there?
There you go. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Can
Yeah.
now.
Okay, good.
Brian, do
Yeah.
you have any questions on the minutes?
Yes, in the inclusionary zoning section of the minutes, under your name, Kathy, it said the last part of the sentence would enable current affordable housing deficit to grow. Is that accurate? I didn't understand that.
No,
It would help reduce it, right?
that's correct.
That makes sense, Grace. And then, Jeannie, your comment, which bylaw is more feasible for annual town meeting?
Yeah,
Familiar with which bylaw we were talking about? Or
I
bylaws?
can't remember either. I think it was the accessory dwelling unit and something else, but I don't remember what it was,
Oh,
to be honest.
maybe by that, because we were talking about only bringing one of the two up. To the
Yeah,
town meeting.
exactly.
I recall that. That was all I had.
And we'll have more, this is sort of unrelated to the minutes through the chair. We'll have more discussion about those two things with the planning board as far as sponsoring articles as well. So we'll keep communication going with obviously the planning board.
Okay.
Okay. So do I hear a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Okay, so Brian makes a motion. I'll second. Jeannie,
Yeah, I or whatever you're supposed to say.
anything you want that's in the affirmative. Brian
Aye.
and Kathy is aye, so it's unanimous as far as the people there. Treasury report, do you have any updates, Brian?
I do not, no.
Okay.
I yeah, just a comment is that I have seen, and I don't think I know the absolute latest. There is work that Joe is doing with the town accountant about returning the, I think it's $7,000.
Yeah.
So there are discussions going on, and I think they're close, if not decided of how to do it. I don't know if you know anything.
Yeah, I was on for the CPC, and Kathy, so were you, where we brought that conversation up to the CPC as far as just letting them know that that money would be sent back to them. And so they, they had some questions about it, obviously, but they didn't necessarily take any action other than to just generally accept that those funds would be returned to them. And so I had at that night reached out to Kenny, our accountant, and Joe, town manager, to just confirm that that is the case, to ask the question as to whether or not there needed to be a town meeting article to support that transfer. I still don't believe that there does. I don't think I got a clear answer from that from the town accountant, but that might have just been my misreading of things. But I don't believe that that'll need any sort of official town action.
Good.
It'll just be because when Kenny responded to me, he just asked for the meeting minutes of CPC accepting those funds back. So I will, once CPC finalizes those minutes, I'll send him that, and then that should be it. As far as then, he just needs to do it, whatever transfer on his ends to transfer that money back to CPC.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, to reiterate what Michael just said, is there was just basically they agreed on substance. They agreed that the 2 years had long expired, and they did agree that the money was given to a different entity. The only thing they weren't sure of was process. And that was followed up on by Joe and Mike and Kenny. So, and I think that Kenny did indicate that all he needed was a minute saying the CPC would accept the money back, and at that point it could just be transferred back. So I think that's what the status is. Everything is processed. And under general minutes, as far as town reports, Michael, do you want to do those? Because most of the town reports are under agenda items. Do you want to do a town report, or do you want to do it item by item under the agenda?
No, we could, I mean, I wasn't gonna give any, I hadn't prepared anything really, so we just want to go through the agenda items. That's fine. Does anybody have any questions about like ongoing projects or anything like that I can address under town report?
That aren't included under agenda items.
Correct, yeah.
No.
Okay.
These
Okay.
will be the items, do I understand you right, Michael? These are the items that will be in the town report.
Well, you're looking at, that's just agenda items. So we'll go through the items afterwards. I didn't provide like I didn't provide a list for a report or anything.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So as far as the agenda items go, the first one is the review 2023 annual report. And I have been not well for the last couple months. I think I'm pulling out of it, but I did review it a couple weeks ago, and I did have a couple changes, and I do know it's due. And I was gonna take a second look at it this afternoon when my internet went out. So I was hoping, and I don't know if this is allowed, Michael, to be able to, I mean, can we do what I would like to do is propose the changes. There were like 3 or 4, but a couple of them were substantive, and we could amend it and then make a decision online, or do we have to have a meeting to
Yeah, Kathy, I would suggest to the trust that if the other 2 members here are comfortable with, they can defer to you to make those changes and to submit the report if they're comfortable with that. So otherwise, that anyway, that's how I would approach it. Is typically with these sorts of like administrative things, it's like, you can, as long as the rest of the committee is amenable to it, you can defer to the chair to sort of those things. And then report back to the trust with any action taken.
Okay.
Kathy, what is it
just
you
as
want
a
to
comment-
change? Kathy,
you
what
know,
is it
again,
you want?
I can't get the report in front of me because my internet's been
Oh.
down since 2.
Sorry, yes, you
so
said
there
that,
were-
didn't you?
Yeah, there were a couple changes about, I think there was one omission and 3 smaller changes of things that had happened in the last year. And I don't know what they are, but what I can do is if this board of the trust, votes to defer to me, I can just send the revised report to people. Again, there was nothing major. I mean, Grace, just to digress from it, Grace, you did a great job. I mean, in the past, every, report filed by the HTE was the same. And this was really substantive and it had a lot of information in it. But there was just, I think there was one error in it and there was a couple small issues and then there was one omission. But I was going to look at it this afternoon and obviously I couldn't, so. I mean,
Okay.
if you want, we can schedule another meeting early next week, a virtual meeting just to go over it again. But if folks want to defer to me on it, I promise I'm not changing anything majorly.
I'm
Right,
okay with
Kathy,
that.
You making those updates.
Yep, me too.
Okay. So, so then I will, as soon as my internet comes back up, hopefully tomorrow, not tonight, I'll look at it and I'll send it to Michael and Grace and CC folks. And if
Okay,
there's
so-
major changes other than that, before it's filed, we'll have to call a quick meeting to discuss. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
Okay. So we don't need votes on these things, do we, Michael?
On that one,
They're
no.
not hearing,
fine.
they're
That's
just
a discussion.
discussion. Yeah. Update and RFP review, 28 Hartford Avenue North. Can you give us an update on that, Michael?
There's been no change as far as the language or anything. There's just, there was ongoing discussion as I believe we left it last. I'm actually trying to remember where we left off on it. There was a lot of discussion last time about structuring an RFP to allow for just disposing of the property. But also there was alteration in the language that I had presented that basically left it a little bit more wide open and wasn't so specific to the creation of 1-2 family. You know what I mean? It was something to that extent. So it was, I believe we're just kind of open-ended on.
I thought we referred it back to town council and that's, we're waiting for town council's comments back.
Oh, you know
I
what?
think so.
Still,
And I know I emailed town council.
Oh, I know, you did it like that night.
Yeah, and so
Yeah.
the reason I'm forgetting is because I haven't heard anything back. So I haven't heard anything back to jog my memory as to why we had that discussion. So I will poke town council on that.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's important to get out. We need to get that RFP reviewed. And I think the big question that we had was, we had a couple questions. I think one unsettled thing, which is why we wanted to do this, was if there's nobody who wants to put affordable housing there, can we leave enough wiggle room so if somebody wants to, acquire the property at what they have to acquire it at, which from what I understand is the cost of the town's investment in the property. I think that was one of the big questions you were asking town council. Then, whether we should restrict it only to affordable housing. And the big question of debate or discussion was, what if no one wants it? And what do we do with it? And
Kathy,
so,
can I jump in here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know what my feelings are about it. My feeling, having thought about it, is that we ought to definitely offer it for affordable housing for a period of time to be determined. And if nobody jumps at it, then open it up. The main reason I'm saying that is because, well, obviously because we're an affordable housing trust and we own the property, but the comments that the abutter made in his email are typical of the comments you hear all the time. If we sell the property to him or somebody like him, the same where we haven't got another property to develop. Are we going to come across? Are we just pushing the ball further down the road because we buy another property, or we find another property that will be suitable, and we have the same reaction from abutters? I mean, where do we decide enough is enough? We're going to do this. Obviously, if nobody wants to put affordable housing on it, it's a moot point. But I feel very strongly that we should first of all offer it for affordable housing and maybe give it a month. I don't know how long you do that. And if nobody comes forward, then open it up to general bidding. But I'm really opposed to opening the RFP to general bidders before we've even offered it for affordable housing.
Yeah, just in general, I think what we had talked about was wording it so preference will be given for affordable.
No, I know
housing,
that. I remember that conversation. I don't think
achieves the end you're looking at. So if anyone comes in and wants to put affordable housing on it, that would be who would get it.
You know what I mean, though, about pushing the ball further down the road. It just keeps on putting it off. Yeah.
No, I understand what you're saying. I just, my big question with this particular property, and I didn't read the abutters comments the same way that you did. I just thought that one guy wanted to expand his backyard. Well,
he actually said we won't have any control over what goes on there. So, I mean, that's fairly explicit.
Yeah. But I think, I think that we should put affordable housing wherever. I mean, I think that abutters have limited, if we're doing a 40B, either a small scale or a larger scale. And I think what, Jeannie, you and I have met with Habitat for Humanity. They were talking about a friendly 40B. Should they choose to be on that, and should they be able to get the funds to actually do it? So, and then what the neighbors, where people, a friendly 40B requires that you talk to neighbors, and, I guess Habitat's been fairly successful in doing that. But, as far as other bidders too, but the preference would be for affordable housing.
It's still a moot point to some extent, isn't it, Catherine? Because we don't have any input from town council yet. Yeah. We don't know what they're going to say.
Yeah.
So, Kathy.
So, Michael, can you push that? I had a long talk with Michael this afternoon, and the next issue we definitely have to push people on. But can you just, because I don't want to keep having the Affordable Housing Trust meet and discuss the same things and have no progress. I don't think any of us wants to do it. It's a waste of time, and we have too much on our plate.
Right. So I'll follow up with town council. I've just sent an email now, but I did actually get a response from Catherine Klein, one of our town attorneys, who just confirmed a couple of things. But obviously, she hasn't come back with a full review of the RFP draft that I sent. So I asked her specifically about that. She did say. She suggested including a land development agreement and attached to the RFP. So I believe I said, yeah, go ahead and provide that. And then she said relative
what would a land development agreement be?
It's basically the contract that comes with the RFP afterwards, right? You receive the bids from interested parties. And through the process of selecting a bid, you then enter into a land development agreement. And that's the contract that ties them to providing what they say they're going to provide.
Michael, does that allow anyone to use that as they want them? Just for open use, never develop it. Is that a use that would be in the development agreement, never use it.
Yeah, I mean, we can, so, I mean, the
I just want
development,
to get the flexibility.
the development agreement is just a sample contract.
Yeah.
Procurement requires that we include it on any sort of procurement activity.
Mhm.
And you would then identify, language to be filled in that says, grant to sell for this purpose. And then that may be blank, it may revert back to, specifications that then are within the bid document. So it's intended to be a draft, not a final contract that then reflects what is being proposed by the bidder. But we need to be able to provide that language for prospective bidders so they understand general parameters that they need to satisfy after.
And then she just confirmed that you do have the ability to sell it back to general market, essentially, or I should say, to sell it to somebody who doesn't want to provide affordable housing. Obviously, that money would need to be then provided back to CPC, but then also we do have the parameters around that we need to make the money back that was spent on it.
Okay, okay. So by doing this contract, then we're not eliminating the possibility of somebody coming in and just buying it and developing it for either market rate housing or for something else.
The land development agreement doesn't limit you to anything except for the parameters of what you'd be looking to do with it, essentially.
Okay.
And
And Michael, can you have that put together us for the next meeting? So at the next meeting, we can just vote, we can discuss the contract, come up with one, make sure that we're all in agreement or the majority's in agreement of what the contract will say and get it out?
Yeah, so hopefully, between now and the next meeting, we'll have the RFP fully reviewed by town council, and we'll have that land development agreement template provided with the RFP. And you can look at that and vote to go with it or not.
Okay,
But Michael, the town council had said we have to come back with, if we sell it, right? We have to return it to the CPC
Mhm.
for the amount of the funds that we put into it. Is that a requirement? I mean, because you never know what market conditions are going to be. I'm surprised. that would
Yeah,
be.
well, I defer to Joe on this particular.
And that's
Right.
where, the problem ends up being really more on a financial reporting law, associated with expenditures of CPC funds requires they be used for certain purposes, otherwise they need to pay back. We may then have to, if say someone offered to buy it for $100,000, we said, let's do it. We'd have to find out, how do we make up the other 67 that's been spent? The full amount needs to go back to CPC, otherwise it's an unauthorized expenditure of CPC funds for non-CPC purposes.
How's your hands? Because
It's sort of like you just leased a car, you're buying it out, but you're telling Subaru that, well, I could only sell it for 30, so can you just forget about the remaining 5,000 that's still left on it? We're
Yeah,
gonna
all
have to come up with the.
all businesses have the potential to lose money, so I'm just surprised that it's so handheld that we can't do what we now believe is to be the right thing, potentially. First, we want to hopefully put affordable housing on. If we can't, then we'd want to be able to dispose of it so we can move on and for the neighbors to get rid of that eyesore and solve and not take any more of our time. I'm also now concerned that we demolish this building. I don't know what the cost would be, but that puts us further into
Yeah.
this.
I mean, that's where
yeah,
this is, and I'm sorry to make it sound so matter of factly, towns do not make money building affordable housing. All you're doing is just mitigating the amount of money you spend on what then is politically tasteful, and the town realistically to build affordable housing here, probably investing essentially 200,000 is probably appropriate. With the amount that was
no, but
spent,
to tell you the truth, at the end of the day, it looks like we're gonna be investing a lot more in this piece of property just to build 2 units. And
And-
I mean, to me, I
point, isn't it?
I actually see a picture where we're stuck with that property.
I
Because
don't,
we're
I
not
don't
gonna
think,
get anyone who wants to take it.
if we,
you know,
so,
without us,
so one of the,
without us spending like $400,000-$500,000 to get them
So-
to take it so we can have and that makes me want to cry. We have a huge mandate in front of us.
Stand that.
so I think one of the main things is that, not to sort of like trust in the process, but once we do the RFP, I think we have enough contacts to get the eyes of affordable housing developers who may be interested in a 2 to 3 unit development that realistically the only investment we're spending is the cost of the land. These projects have been done without town spending $500,000 or even $400,000. It's just the environment and the willingness to work with the town and the receptibility of the town
Yeah.
for those. And when we last did it, we just probably, we could have hit too close to around COVID that people just didn't want to have the risk. They saw the property and saw that there would be potential mediation that they didn't know what they could be burdened with for costs. So you throw a bunch of unknowns, people then don't pay attention to it. If we can tick off some of these unknowns and address it either by demoing the property or providing a full assessment report so they know what to expect. Go to conservation for pre-permitting for demolition activities so that they know they don't have unknown costs with conservation. Land development is all, when you're dealing with municipal projects, it's all about increasing certainty and decreasing uncertainty as it relates to obstacles that cost the developer money.
But Michael, here's what we're up against. This is what, and I'm combining this with the next topic. Is the town, the Affordable Housing Trust has already invested almost, if not more than $200,000 in that property. So that's going to be, that's basically gone. We don't have that money. And then when we were talking earlier, we were talking about the update on the demolition. And basically that hasn't moved at all. And it hasn't moved at all because it's concerns about the culvert and having construction equipment go over the culvert to get there. There's a need for Conservation Commission to go in and do wetlands. I don't know if they hire a wetlands person or they do it themselves, which I assume the Affordable Trust is going to have to pay for. So and then we're talking about if we can't get construction equipment over that culvert, then, and there was also a question about a septic system in there, then how on earth is anyone going to develop it? I mean,
Well,
this just seems to be a never-ending suck of the money we have to get rid of this property that we dramatically overpaid for in the first place. And it's just
Catherine,
really sad.
Catherine, can I interrupt? There must have, the culvert, wasn't the culvert there when the house was built in the first place? I mean, they
Yeah,
obviously
but this
built
is
the
what
house, so.
Not the building commissioner. Yes, Michael talked to Pat Roach, and he expressed concerns about the culvert, about whether or not construction equipment, because my question was, this was considered, I thought, I forgot the term, but I thought the police department and some other folks at the last meeting and at the CPC meeting said there was an urgent need to demolish that building because it was a public, hazard. And nothing has happened. The RFP hasn't gone out. There's a question about what kind of RFP needs to go out. There's a question about asbestos removal. And then when the building inspector was, and I get along really well with the building inspector, but when he was asked, he expressed, concerns about, being able to get equipment over that culvert and being able to get over the septic system. And the septic system, I assume if they're doing something, would be replaced anyway. So that's not a huge issue. But the culvert is. And then it also has to get approval from the Conservation Commission. And all this stuff takes time and costs money.
Yep.
And, asbestos removal, I mean, I thought that the site was clean. I thought when I spoke to Pat, like not too long ago, he had gone in to look at it. And I thought he said there was no asbestos or hazardous materials in it. Looks like that's changed. You know, so we don't know how much it's going to cost. All we know is we
So-
own it. And that nothing's
So
happening.
I-
with it. It's sitting there.
So I might be able to provide a little bit of added, because Pat came into my office yesterday and in thinking about it as well, I think there's a couple things that not to say that he's not raising valid points. He's raising points that are easily mitigated. For example, all that may be needed to protect that culvert is to have steel plates be put down to distribute the weight so you don't crush it. A contractor may need to just put up erosion controls. That the amount of activity, because it would be outside of while it may be jurisdictional, it's outside of the 30-foot no disturb. I was actually reviewing the RFP that was developed for 2 Grove Street when we took that down. It's the gravel lot. That was only 50,000, and they included putting the responsibility for going to conservation, hazardous removal, going through and taking care of those. And that may not be an unreasonable cost. I've dug through, and I just hadn't had a chance to send it to Michael yet because I have the Word document for that RFP that can easily be amended to address this site. Pat told me all those same things, and I think they're mitigatable. I don't think it's a big hurdle that he first relayed to me, and that just thinking about it a little bit more, I think while he was right to raise those as points, I don't think that they would result in significant liability. Because of this time of year, I will have to utilize a consultant to help me finalize the RFP because Michael also is dealing with a lot on his plate. But that should be something that within the next month should be able to turn around to get to the Affordable Housing Trust to actually review and consider releasing.
And through
Yeah, I
through
mean,
the chair.
So I would, just a second, Brian. I would really like if this could all be ready by the next meeting. And I know I'm being pushy, but it just seems that this property just keeps, I mean, we had discussed taking it down because it was a public nuisance and because people were afraid. There were kids trespassing in it. There's been questions by the police for a long time. The neighbors are afraid if someone's going to light it on fire. And this was Halloween. And here we are 2 months later and nothing's been done. And we just have more questions. And so I really would like, just for the public safety perspective of it. I mean, I remember Fisherville Mill, and this isn't Fisherville Mill, but, you have a property go up in flames in a congested area. And that's a problem. And I would just like to get that down. I mean, and I think I'm speaking for the board. And I'm also speaking for the board that we would like to just get some certainty about how we're going to get rid of it, when we're going to get rid of it, and what it's going to cost us. And we can't do it until we get the RFP out. And I know that everyone's busy, and I know that, but the trust has been dormant for a number of years. And when we reconstituted, this thing has been like the albatross around our neck from day one. And we haven't really been able to focus on other things because we got this hanging over our heads. And so I'd really like to start seeing movement on that. And I'm sorry, Brian, you wanted to speak?
I think it was Michael.
I was going to say, I was just going to ask Joe's opinion on as far as
going before Concom, would it be best to proceed with filing an RDA with Concom sooner rather than later? Or would it be better to have on a demolition contractor on to I mean, I don't know what sorts of questions.
I think
would
you-
come up, but
I
that's my
think you
question.
probably do both is you go informally in front of them saying, look, we're trying to expedite this as quickly as possible. What do we need? What should we file?
Yeah,
Final permits, should be on the contractor. Because, they're gonna identify what their work area is. We can't define exactly what their footprint is. But we should be able to do, some stuff, upfront to prepare for that.
okay. All right. I'll reach out to Mary and get on Concom agenda for as soon as possible to have that conversation with Conservation Commission.
Okay, and a question, do they bring in a consultant to do that and do we pay for it?
To do what part?
Doing wetlands delineation and that stuff, they have to pay, it has to be paid.
I don't think
correct?
we're gonna have wetlands lineation, especially at this stage of the game. My conversation with Mary this morning was that it's really not gonna be much information is gonna be required as far as like that sort of thing or surveyed or that, I mean, well, by the way, I have a survey right in front of you.
Yeah.
Right here. That information, and it has wetlands flagged, I believe, already on it. Just not out in the site, probably not, but I don't think an RDA, as it was expressed by Mary, will require that heavy of a lift. It'll just basically be per what she told me is they'll tell us to throw up erosion control.
Yeah.
And that'll be that.
And
Which is-
Joe
which
and
is-
Michael, is it unreasonable to request that we have the RFP for demolition and for disposal available for the next meeting?
If your meeting is in a month, that should be fine. 2 weeks, I can't
No,
promise.
Yeah, no, we meet once a month and I am mean and I can be like, but I'm not that irrational to expect you can do 2 weeks turnaround. So I'm a little bit irrational, but not more than that. So yeah, we just need to get that building down. Does anyone, now that I'm done my rant, does anyone else have any questions or comments on it?
Nope.
Nope.
RFQ for the Affordable Housing Trust Action Plan. Where do we stand on that?
Yep, so I put that together. It's on the website. I reached out to consultants to, hey, we've gone live with the RFQ for this. So if you're interested, let me know. I did hear back from one consultant expressing interest in submitting a bid, but they've yet to submit a bid. So that's where I am with it currently.
Michael, when does that close out?
I believe I left it fairly open. So it's, because consultants are in short supply right now, as I'm finding out. I finally got, after having an RFQ out for, I don't know how many months at this point for the MBTA communities. I didn't get a single bite. And now I'm finally, January 1, I'm finally getting interest in these sorts of things. It's an RFQ, it's not an RFP. RFP is the much more formal process, procurement process. We have to have those things really well defined. RFQ is just requesting for quotes and qualifications from consultants, so you can prove that you solicited at least 3 decent quotes to pick from for this process. So it can be left open, but so hopefully it shouldn't have to be open much longer.
So by
So the
next,
RFQ, do you have to solicit 3 quotes?
I'm
Do you have to
hoping.
receive-
I'm sorry, Kathy, what?
For the RFQ, do you have to solicit 3 quotes or do you have to receive 3 quotes?
I believe solicit. I
Okay.
can't make people respond.
Right. I mean, because for planning and engineering services, if we just wanted to do a single contract with a contractor for these services, it actually is exempt from 30B.
Yeah.
So once you decide to do an RFQ, it's just best practices to reach out to three for identifying just overall costs. But you don't have to receive.
Okay.
But I've yet to receive one so far, so
Yeah.
except for CMRPC, obviously. I'm, like I said, I did get interest from a different firm, but I don't have anything from them in hand.
And that's not a surprise, given all the money that's been put out there for economic development, MBTA communities, other things. And putting it on the back burner for 3 months may then result in more varied responses if we picked it up in March.
Okay.
Kelly. Yeah, a question,
Yeah.
I guess. So the RFQ, we get responses,
Mhm.
and then we go for, oh, you said we might not have to do, or don't have to technically
Or-
go for an RFP.
No,
Okay, so if we get one, we like that one,
Mhm.
at the next meeting, we could move forward?
Yeah.
Technically,
Yes,
okay.
so long as I prove that I've solicited more than one, which I have.
Mhm. All right, good.
and then if the amount is over 25,000, we would have to go in front of the board of selectmen for approval. If it's under 25,000, then I can just sign the contract.
Didn't we
Um,
approve 50,000 for it at town meeting?
You approve, was it 15,000?
Yeah, that's right, 15.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was 15. It was 15,000.
Yeah.
So we're good.
I think I did the RFQ for that one. That's why.
Well, thank you.
For the
Okay.
CMRPC side. I don't know if you guys are gonna select us, but yeah. For that side, did the budgeting on that one.
So any other questions on the action plan? I mean, it would be great to have that done as quickly as possible so we can sort of figure out next steps. So
Mhm.
people don't treading water.
Nope.
Any other questions from folks on this item?
No.
Okay. The next item is update on staffing and support.
Kathy, I gave you the update earlier today. Obviously, Josipa Zahn has joined us tonight, and I think since last time we spoke, or maybe it happened immediately after, the planning board approved use of the CMRPC credit hours for Josipa to be here tonight. And we'll use the remainder of those credit hours. I think it was 15 or so.
Can you get rid of that, please?
Through the remainder of the fiscal year. And then CMRPC had reached out, gauging interest for Josipa's services in the start of fiscal year 25. And so obviously I reached out on the town's behalf saying, yes, we're interested. Obviously, this board is interested, as we detailed in our applications before CPC. And so we'd be looking to spend the Affordable Housing Trust funds towards contributing to having the regional housing coordinator position dedicate, I think it was 5 hours a week to
Yeah, I think
this.
it was. Yeah,
Or
I think it's
4.
4.5 or
It's
4.5,
I
if
thought
I'm not
it was
mistaken.
4.
Is it 4? Okay.
I
Yeah.
thought it was 4. I didn't think you guys did fractions. I thought it was 4 or 8 or, I mean, there were different increments, but I thought we were 4 at the beginning of this. And then with the expectation that when things started moving forward, we'd probably require more of your time.
Yeah, it'd be more or less based on that. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not.
So Josipa, I think we're just waiting for next steps from CMRPC in order to finalize that.
Yeah, I'll have Connor and Trish then end up connecting, and I can
Okay.
probably do a CC email or something along that line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And once everything's like set up, I'd like to be able to sit down, chat, just to go over some of the stuff that's going on. And then, if you can, I mean, you're not going to have super much time. And then, that and the attendance of the meetings will probably eat up a lot of your commitments. So, okay. Any other
And
questions?
obviously, and Grace, unprompted, joined us tonight, which is very kind of her. So she's helping us out more and
Thank you,
more.
Rick.
Thank you.
And yeah, and I put in a request to get some dedicated staff hours to giving this board administrative help. So for the start of the fiscal year, so we'll see where that goes.
Clarifying. So that regional housing coordinator, I know that, because at least in my mind, there's a concern that the people that already have been using those hours
Mm.
would get preference. And then there's some remaining hours, hopefully. Do we definitely have the CFIS time that's locked in?
You have use of those hours from the plan.
So there's 15 hours that I think that is with the CMRPC credit, and then for the fiscal year, I believe it's 4. But there are some hours and leeways because I know I think all the towns are doing that. But I think as we go along, we can see if you guys want to add in more hours or go from that way if that's needed later.
We definitely
But yeah.
have 4 hours fiscal year 25 a week.
We don't definitely have it yet. We're waiting for just to finalize that with CMRPC. but-
Yeah, I'll just have.
Red
yeah,
flag jets in the bidding war.
No.
And the 15
Um,
hours, Brian, that's for this fiscal year, that was, the planning board had 15 hours left and they voted to designate to the Affordable Housing Trust. So we definitely have those 15 hours for the remainder of this year.
Great.
So I think till September is the fiscal year. 2025 is
July.
coming.
Start of
October,
fiscal
sorry,
year.
October, sorry. So can I bring something up?
Sure.
Or are we still in the agenda? Okay, so I with
we're
since
Still on the agenda.
we're
just
still-
have to do
oh
it-
okay, sorry, I
with
thought
update
okay in the
on-
end I have something. Okay.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with update of staffing and support. Okay, yeah, why don't we talk about that at the end of the meeting, if that's okay?
Yeah, no problem. Sorry about that.
Okay. So the
So
next
just-
item on the agenda was discussion of inclusionary zoning and accessory dwelling bylaw changes for the annual town meeting. I did talk to Michael earlier today, because the planning board, for some reason, the first time we brought this up, they seemed inclined towards considering that for the town meeting. At the last planning board meeting, they seemed disinclined. So I will recommend that the planning board table that inclusionary zoning discussion until its next meeting, which is still before the warrant closes. Just because I need to be able to strategize a little bit about how to present it in a different way. Again, I haven't been up to stuff recently, so I haven't really been able to, focus on developing strategy. So there was discussion at the last meeting, I believe, about whether we want to look, the planning board was inclined, in my opinion, about accessory dwellings. Because that's just, that's been, the zoning board, I think, has said that uses up like 90% of its time. So I think the planning board has another discussion planned on that tonight. I think there was a couple of questions about limitations on accessory dwellings, but they seemed inclined in support of that one. So, and I know at our last meeting, the Affordable Housing Trust last meeting, there was a discussion if we want one or both of those to move forward. My preference, and I'm using my situation as chair here to state my preference before I open for discussion, is I would like to see if we can move both of them forward. I think that inclusionary zoning, especially with the MBTA communities, is going to be a critical part of what we're doing. So with that said, but if we don't want the planning board to move forward with it, that's up to this group, not me. So with that, I'll open it for discussion.
Kathy, what are some of the reasons that some planning board members sound like they have some reluctance to move forward at the next town meeting?
Well, there were two problems, and Mike can, if he can correct me if I'm missing anything. One of the members was sort of like, how can we tell people what to do with their property? If someone buys something and they want to put all this luxury apartments, and they should be allowed to, or these buildings, and they should be allowed to do it. And the other concern, which Michael addressed, was that inclusionary zoning, which would require a certain percentage of affordable units, would drive up the cost of market rate units. And it does not appear that that is the case, according to what's happened in other communities. But those were the two main, and then there was, the typical, thing about why is the state telling us what to do? So those are sort of the three issues. I think the one about, the state shouldn't be telling us we have to build affordable housing. I think that ship has been sailed, and I think that was just someone venting. As far as the, concern about people should be able to do what they want on their own property, I don't know if that was just a random comment or if that was a deeply held thought. That particular member does not have a track record of allowing people to do what they want on their own property. So I was actually a little bit surprised. But I think that the question on the escalation of market rate units, if you're increasing affordable units, was a valid question. But I think Michael did give a good answer to it. So,
And Kathy, I just forwarded everybody, almost a month ago, I had spoken with somebody who works on the private side of development for affordable housing projects. And I'd sent the planning board notes of my conversation. And so I just forwarded that to the Housing Trust, Josepha, as well as you. So everybody can draw from that information. It might help answer some questions about inclusionary zoning and its effectiveness.
Kathy, I'll share my view of what I would like us to do, is to inclusionary zoning, I see as the much more important priority. And the longer we don't have that, I think we open ourselves up to opening up the gap, increasing the gap when another development comes in. So I think that I would like to move forward as fast as we can, which is the next town meeting. And then as for the ADUs, I think in our discussion we talked about, and I thought we were leaving it, the state most likely was going to have it as a reg. That's some of the language it sounded like.
Yeah.
But it hadn't been passed yet.
Correct. Yeah. Still, I mean, Kathy, unless you're, or Josepha, if you're familiar with anything that's happened with the state with those, there was just that letter from the administration from a few months ago, just kind of stating some sort of intention with ADUs, and there's been nothing as of yet.
Mm-hmm. So
There
that, I
hasn't
think
been,
both
yeah,
are important. I'm
yeah,
sorry,
there
Lucy.
hasn't been anything, sorry, there hasn't been anything as of that with the state. I do know that, sorry, I think with neighboring towns, I know Worcester, or neighboring cities, Worcester has passed their ADU. And actually I know Grafton's in the talk with also passing their own ADU bylaw, and also which they're interested in because that's a part of their oh my God, housing production plan. And then also I just had Adam from Auburn kind of asking me to do research on it. So also interested. So some towns are taking that action as well. So that's a little bit of that update. But besides that, the state hasn't really done much
Good.
on it.
So it sounds like other towns are not waiting for the state to weigh in before they act on this.
No, I mean, also reading other towns' housing production plans, ADUs have been something that they've been considering and has been added in as a aspect of affordable housing as well. So, yeah.
I tend to agree with Kathy. I think we should do both if we can.
I think the question that the planning board had with the ADUs was what limitations do you put on them? And Michael, you can,
Obviously.
Grace, you were at that meeting too. is right now, when requests go in for ADUs, they're for family members. And I think there's a real question that people have about doing accessory dwellings with just for general rental. Or for, so there were sort of outstanding questions on that. But I suppose an actionable on the part of the Affordable Housing Trust that we could do, and Michael and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong here, is can we take a vote to request that the planning board conduct public hearings on both of these topics?
Joe stepped out, Kathy.
Oh, and Michael, you can answer it.
Yeah, so the question is, can you take a vote to ask the planning board to do something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because all,
it's-
we're all we're doing is asking them to hold the public hearing on it.
Yeah, it's basically just communication between boards is all that is. You're just sending a communication to them to say, hey, we're interested in this and we hope you take up the task. That's all.
Okay.
You can't compel them obviously to do it. But yeah, it's just an ask.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it would have more weight if it were a formal request.
I would think so. It's formal. If you're asking if it means more to take a formal vote versus to just send a letter that is signed as letterhead as the Affordable Housing Trust, I'm not sure that either one bears any difference. I mean, they'd still be receiving.
Yeah, signing a letter would be fine. I just meant something more formal than me talking about it at a meeting.
Right, of course.
And
Yeah,
is
if
there
there's a consensus, if there's a consensus amongst the trust to send some sort of communication that you're all in support of, I think that speaks that speaks loudly.
Can I ask a question? When does the warrant close for town meeting?
The 26th.
Of January.
So yeah.
So how
there's-
could we
but
get
there's
public hearings before that? Because you presumably
what
want to do that before you put these things on the warrant, wouldn't you? Or am I just, isn't that the case?
Well, it'll be a placeholder. So nothing we pose from a zoning bylaw perspective as of right now is going to be completely ready. It would be my duty to provide, and Joe just asked for it in the hallway, which is some sort of template or draft language for any and all articles for the warrant. And those would change. And because you would then you get the placeholder on the warrant, and then through the public hearing process through planning board, that language may change.
Okay.
And then there are timelines and everything the planning board needs to adhere to that extends well beyond the closing of a warrant anyway. So it's typical. Don't be too thrown by that. It's just a matter of deciding whether or not you want to pursue something.
Okay. Got
I
it.
mean, most public hearings would be in April, correct? Don't we tend to
Would
have
it-
hearings like 3, 4 weeks before the, 2, 3, 4 weeks before the town meeting?
I'm forgetting what the timeline is. There's some sort of, there is a timeline that the planning board needs to submit a recommendation within a certain time frame after beginning public hearing on something. In this case, it's technically the planning board that would be creating the action. So there you pretty much broad discretion with or somewhat broad discretion with timelines because it's not like a citizen petition for something that you then have to show that you've documented particular action throughout a timeline. If it's being proposed by the planning board, then it's proposed by the planning board, so they can again, they have a little bit more discretion with that. But as far as and then it's whenever you want to schedule the public hearing for it. The public hearing should just obviously be you should have enough time before time in between the close of a public hearing and then town meeting.
Yeah.
You wouldn't want to be issuing a decision on or a formal recommendation, you as the planning board, I mean, the
Yeah.
planning board, you wouldn't want to be issuing a recommendation on a bylaw like the night before town
No.
meeting, right? You have that
Yeah.
well in advance.
Yeah, but I think we've done it a couple weeks before.
Oh, sure, yeah, absolutely, that makes sense. But yeah, don't be so concerned about timeline. Again, it's just as far as the warrant is concerned, it's a matter of making a decision. And again, I'm speaking sort of on behalf of the planning board. It's about making a decision as to whether or not you want to have something on for discussion for town meeting at this stage. And then finalizing the language through the public hearings that would come after.
Michael, if you
Okay.
put something on, let's say both items go on,
Mhm.
and later you realize we have only the appetite for one, you can put it, and people wouldn't know.
You can
question why.
Things get pulled. I mean, yeah, sure, people would probably know.
Mhm.
They'd probably question why, but that's fine.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You say we weren't ready, or I'm pretty sure you can, if planning board doesn't recommend something, it goes to public hearing and the planning board's like, we don't recommend favorably that this be adopted at town meeting. You might want the planning board, even if it's their article, they might decide, well, then why are we let's not put it to test then.
Mhm.
Because that would be,
Yeah.
seems like a waste of time.
And then we could ask it
Yes.
to be withdrawn, correct? Or is
Yes,
that only a petition? Yeah, okay.
it can be withdrawn, but I defer to Joe on like timelines for withdrawing articles. I don't know if there is, but I think, again, I think it runs up into at least a couple weeks before town meeting that you have the ability to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
does it
Yeah.
EU count against, or count for the SHI inventory?
Say
Only
again?
if it's affordable. It would need to be deeded affordable in some way. It would need to, and just so you can jump in here, if you know.
Yeah,
my
so you
understanding
can,
is that- Go ahead.
no, sorry, go on, sorry.
I was gonna say that my understanding is it would need to be deeded affordable in some way, that is, would follow formerly DHCD, now Housing and Livable Communities, guidelines for what is considered affordable. So it's not as easy as creating some bylaw language to require that they be affordable. There needs to be some sort of process that the folks pursuing the ADU have to go through in order to get it formally accepted as affordable. And so my suggestion to that would be, don't bother.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna be
Yeah,
an astronomical lift for anybody trying to do that.
And also too, I don't want to hold.
Yeah,
people's-
so it
Yeah.
would have to be like, let's say, out of the 30 units, just giving an example, like you need the 10% to be deemed affordable, and that 10% affordability would be like the 80% AMI. But then for it to go through, even though there's a bylaw, it has to have some sort of, let's say, recognition, or it's like in the process of it going through, or is in the process of developing for you to deem that affordable. So there's a little.
Yeah, I think that we're talking about two separate things. I think the ADU, we're not looking at being affordable in the sense of listed as affordable under DHCD. I think what we're talking about is that's just housing that people can afford. It's a smaller case affordable. Well, we're talking about the
Inclusionary zoning?
inclusionary zoning, that's
Mm.
when we're
Mm.
talking about having the process set up, and that's one of the reasons why we're going to need CMRPC's help. In discussions with developers and with Michael and Joe, most developers that come in know how to do this, and they know how to set the whole thing up. But if we do get smaller developments, then we're going to have to, I don't think we as members have the capacity. So I think that's something that we'll be relying on CMRPC to do on our behalf, is to set up the system and to make sure that those units do comply and are recorded and are deed restricted. So okay, so the plan is that, Joe, Michael, do you have a chance to just draft a quick letter to the planning board?
Yeah, of course.
Or do you, okay, and if we could, and with the approval of Jeannie and Brian, I will sign it and we will formally request that they consider inclusionary zoning. And Michael has a template done up of what it could look like, which I will take another look at tomorrow, and and maybe that's what we use.
And I'll share that with the trust as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other discussions on, and then when is the next, not tonight's planning board meeting, but the next one is, when is it?
The 23rd?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, January, yeah, of course.
Yeah, and it would be helpful if people could come to that meeting. It's the 23rd of January at 7 o'clock, and it'll be at Town Hall. And so then, it'd be helpful if, other people can be there to stress the importance of getting this bylaw before public hearing and to get the planning board support. So any other discussion? So are people okay with that?
I am.
Yes.
Okay. Next thing, real quickly, and so we're done the agenda items, but just something that the executive director thought of off the top of her head is there any update real quick on what's going on behind Pickering's? I've noticed there's been activity there, lots of flags and things like that. And there's been a number of public hearings. Is that still moving forward?
Yes, it is.
But I don't know,
You can go
I'm
with-
not sure about flags and things. I know Lobosar had been working with Pickering to identify solutions to their water runoff problems. So that could be potentially what you're seeing, but I don't know for sure. I'm not aware of anything else that's going on at the site.
Okay, but there's been no delays as of yet in the process.
Correct. It's moving a lot faster than I anticipated, given that the board only meets once a month.
Yeah, okay. And so CMRPC, you're on.
Okay, so I guess talking about ADUs, I am proposing, or I'm working on a proposal with DLTA for ADU workshops, and was thinking it would be more throughout the region with, I guess I can read out the little proposal I ended up putting on. I was thinking of proposing this project would involve a systematic research process, starting with comprehensive literature and case studies on affordable housing initiatives with focus on ADUs. This would include stakeholder interviews, municipal officials, community leaders to follow and understand the perspectives. Excuse me, sorry.
Thank you, the TP.
Based on research with detailed plan projects to formulate understanding and structural regional workshops. This workshop would feature presentations, interactive sessions, and knowledge to promote collaboration for affordable housing incentives and effectiveness on ensuring continuous improvement and ongoing research and best practices. So I was thinking of doing workshops that include ADUs and bylaws and best practices and things along that line. And I was just wondering to see if Upton would be interested in joining for these ADU workshops. So that's what I was kind of wanting to discuss with you.
Sorry, I'm getting confused with the acronyms. What is ADU? Affordable? What is
Affordable.
ADU?
What we were just talking.
Accessory dwelling unit.
Accessory
That's
dwelling
what
units.
I thought. Okay, that's what I thought. But then, okay, and then what does LTI mean?
DLTA.
it's the district local hold on, technical assistance program. So they end up setting over funds, and I was thinking of putting in a proposal for ADU workshops basically, and
Okay.
this would help the region, let's say if a bylaw is created, or to help a bylaw or to promote ADUs with the aspect of affordable housing and the NIMBYism that's involved with it and things along that line. So I was just seeing if Upton is interested in joining. I know that Grafton is potentially interested and Mendon is potentially interested. So yeah.
So questions, because I sort of jumped the gun, I guess, earlier. When you're talking
Yes, I know.
about,
That's what I was like.
yeah, when you talk about ADUs as affordable, you're talking if Mary Smith wants to put an in-law apartment on her building, on her house, that you're talking about making it deed restricted to be affordable.
Not necessarily, but just best practices, maybe promoting affordability more than anything, and then perhaps giving incentives. It's just a workshop that I'm thinking. It could be just starting off the conversation that way and educating
You're making it.
educating residents on affordability and the aspect of affordable housing, because when people think of affordable housing and then they go into thinking, okay, this is 80% AMI, and to be honest, majority of the US makes under the 80% AMI. So that is more of the educational aspect and the workshops around it. So that's what
How
I'm
does
more so
that-
thinking.
How does that differ from the affordable? I don't want people to get fatigued. So we're talking about funding an affordable housing plan. And some of those topics, I mean, the ADU
Yes.
workshop sounds really good. And I think,
Yeah,
but,
so
yeah,
so this would be with no cost. The cost would go toward, it would be, the affordable housing plan is completely different from this. Sorry, I'm just charging my laptop. I'm just finding my charger. Yeah, so the affordable housing plan would be completely different from the ADU workshops in terms of it's just to provide like, I guess, provide residents with and stakeholders with the technical tools that they need for that assistance. It's just more of a regional workshop that I'm thinking of doing. Again, it would be no cost. It would be more of a grant that I'm applying for. And let's say if Upton wants to host something, or if Upton wants to join in, it'd be like Upton, Mendon, and maybe Grafton, and other towns. Maybe it's like Southbridge or Starbridge and things along that line. And it's just more of a regional dialogue situation with that. Does that make sense?
yeah.
Yeah, I
No,
mean, can I
that-
just say something? Can I
Yeah.
say something? There's
Yeah.
when you talk about ADUs, as you're pointing out, we're not really talking about affordable housing per se, but we are really, because they are. I mean, I don't know if the town would restrict ADUs to family members, or I would personally not think it would be a good idea to make them available at commercial rates. But there's
I think now,
it's almost a two-pronged
I-
sword, two-edged sword.
board, I think with the way that it's written now is with the
Yeah.
zoning board, it's for family members. It's
Right, and
restricted.
that makes total sense. But whoever it's for, you're increasing the housing stock. You're getting
Yeah.
people
Exactly.
into a home of their own, and it really does, even though they're not officially affordable housing units, they are affordable housing units, because I'm
Yeah,
assuming you
our-
didn't charge your family member
Exactly.
extortionate amount of money to live there. I would hope not, anyway. So I think it kind of dovetails with what we're trying to do. It's just not our responsibility, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying more of a responsibility. Like right now, we're having a
Oh, no, I know
discussion
you're not.
about it. Oh,
I
no,
know
no,
you're
no. I'm
not.
just more so saying it's like, you know how we're having a discussion about it and going back and forth and talking about, okay, what is reasonable and what isn't not reasonable. That's what I'm proposing for these workshops. And I guess what I'm asking from Upton is a letter of support if you guys are interested in joining in this conversation. If not, I understand. I was just proposing that idea because I ended up, I think, sending an email to Michael about
Really?
this. But yeah, I ended up, so I was just wondering, that's all.
I
Yeah,
receive a
personally,
great idea.
speaking, I actually think, I mean, I call it large scale, large A affordable and small A affordable. And I always looked at what we're trying to do, you know, the thing that, you know, lights the fire under us is being able to build, you know, large A affordable housing. But I think that, you know, I think there's just general agreement on this, is we need to also have just affordable housing. And I kind of like to learn more about ADUs. I'd like to learn more about, you know, historical perspective, like what's happened in other towns if they, you know, because another thing that people have thought about that has been discussed, and I'm clueless about it, is if Mary Smith has a house that she can't really afford anymore, and if she builds an accessory dwelling on it, she can rent it to someone and have the
Exactly.
income to support herself and also have an affordable house. So I would be
So-
interested in it, and I would see it fitting within our mandate, even though it's not for the large A affordable housing. But that's just my
So-
opinion.
So I
do
think to
too.
add on to it, it's just, again, sorry, I'm putting it as ADU / affordable housing workshops. So it could be, as I've said, like Mary Smith, this is what's going on. She comes in, she's a resident, she doesn't know, she reaches out to the trust. We can end up giving her, or we can end up helping her because she's a resident, to give her the tools that she needs to, I guess, put the language in to, let's say, okay, I want to put an ADU in my backyard, or this is what's going on.
Yeah.
Like, how can we give these residents technical assistance or provide these workshops? It could be a quarterly thing, it could be a monthly thing, and it's a regional aspect of it, where we can, like, we can just guide. And I think a lot of the times, what I think from my experience that I've seen, the term affordable housing really scares people in
Yeah.
general. And then once they learn more about it, they're like, okay, this is something that makes sense. So again, it's like a regional dialogue, and I was just like, why not take a chance with it and see if I can get some funding for it and maybe start the conversation and kind of just go from there. But yeah.
I would be
To see-
interested. How does the trust? I'm sort of hurrying this because the planning board has that same place where you guys. I'm not going to make it being there in person, but they're meeting in 5 minutes. That's why I'm sort of pushing this. So,
Sorry. Okay.
no,
So,
personally, I would like to. I would like to participate, especially if it's like Grafton and Mendon, because then we have like peer communities.
exactly.
I was
Okay,
just gonna
so-
suggest that, I wasn't gonna plan to submit anything for DLTA, because I've got a lot of other programs and projects I'm working on, so I have no problem just sending in a letter of support for that program. That shouldn't be an issue at all.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
so,
Brian,
sorry,
what do you
who's
think?
talking?
That was
was
Michael.
Michael.
Who's talking?
Can you please
Michael, okay,
repeat?
so do you want me to send you, so you said you have no problem with sending a letter of support?
Well,
Correct.
let me ask the board. I'm Kathy Robertson. I am the chair. I have no problem sending the letter of
Oh.
support. Jeannie, do
Me
you have a
neither.
pro-
I agree.
Brian?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay,
I need
so
this letter
Michael-
of support by Friday, so I will
Oh.
send with the chain of, sorry, I was like, I just got into this like last week. So I was like, this is a great idea.
Yeah,
I've
and
been
also,
being sleepless about it
also-
because I've been writing the
Yeah.
whole proposal. I'm super excited. So I will send
Well,
over, because Michael sent everybody's emails. I'll send over what I have for a draft, and if you guys agree, then I just need signatures. That's all.
well, just send it to Michael. Michael has because we can't really review and act on anything because between meetings. So Michael has our authorization to send a letter, and if he wants to use your draft, and he owes you because he told you
Sending it as
meeting
the direct.
4
relay.
hours in advance. So he can get this turned around by Friday.
Thank
Right,
you. I
Michael?
appreciate it.
Okay. Any other
All right,
questions?
Kathy, we
people
need to
have?
wrap up because we have planning boards, we're spilling into planning board.
Yeah, I know.
And I need my
that's
dinner.
what- So everybody, I thought this was going to be a quick meeting tonight. Everybody,
Yeah, that chance
okay,
of that.
we have to send the next, we have to set the next meeting. When is the planning board's meeting in 4 weeks?
The 23rd, right?
And you mean a month from now?
No,
Should be
no,
the
no,
13th?
It would be the 13th of February. Are folks
Yeah,
around
so
the
that's the
13th?
second.
That would
Brian,
be
Jeannie,
the-
are you around on that date?
As far as I know.
Okay. Okay, so why don't we meet 5:30 on February 13th? And hopefully we'll have everything wrapped up so we can start moving on Hartford Avenue North, and we can just start looking at all this other stuff before us. So, and if people can look at the RFP that's been sent out, and if they can look at the Affordable Housing Trust, if they can look at the language for the for the exclusionary zoning, that would be really good. So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I
Motion to
vote
adjourn?
we adjourn. Sorry.
Okay. You got a second?
Yeah, I second it.
Okay, unanimous. Brian made the motion, Jeannie seconded, we're out
I
of here
did.
and the planning board move in. And I will
Okay.
call into that meeting now too. Thank
Okay.
you.